was just struck by thinking about the feminist approach in your filmmaking process, not just the sort of the inner monologue coming out and the intimate partner support through these sort of the turbulence of art and research. But even like in the movement of the photographs, we get this feeling that someone is holding the camera or either like holding the photograph in front of the lens. And it really points to the embodiment in the production process.
Ahmed lives in Pittsburgh. He's trying to make it work. He thinks things will look up for him. They must, he says to himself. But without success, he's become impatient and will soon grow desperate and bitter.
I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about how the feminism maps onto, the pacing, the cadence, some of those editorial choices you're making.
Doing something equally is never quite equal. So we had to do a lot of layers between, deciding if it was going to be images of Ahmed or of me. And then if it was images of Ahmed, it wasn't my voice, but it was the voice of the Lily character, right? And for us, that was more important than having images of the woman where the man is overriding that narrative. We wanted the woman to have the final say. And so she is sort of overriding his narrative as something that, you get a lot in cinema. You can have a lot of female leads, but it's usually a man behind the camera, a man behind the story. So we were trying to put, Ahmed front and center, have the Lily character narrate it, and then have those subtitles superimposed on top of him with her story. Mm-hmm. And even though those elements may or may not add up to 50-50, we were thinking of which ways, what are the important places where we need to center the woman versus the man.
It's a film that resists translation, not only in terms of language, because there was this question, right, when we were discussing questions of accessibility and subtitles and everything, right? How do you subtitle a film that has two narratives going on at the same time, one in subtitles and one in audio? But it also resists a linear translation, more like a linear interpretation, right? So you give us those. They're not conflicting narratives, they're just layered narratives, and you don't solve that for us. It doesn't, we don't take out, we don't leave the film knowing okay, clearly this was the voice of a woman, or clearly this was just the voice of a man, or you don't solve anything for us.
You use the word resistant, and I think the film also resists possession of authorship, which is something we thought a lot about when we set out making the film, because when you're a directing duo, especially a man and a woman from really different cultural backgrounds, it's hard to claim authorship over a project that purports to be very personal, because how can both of you share this title, this credit? And so when we set out to make this film, we wanted to sort of wrestle with that question. And I'm not sure if we came to a specific answer. I don't think in art you ever really come to a clear, decisive answer. But that's definitely what we're wrestling with in this film is, this sort of inherent tension between two artists that are working together. And you see that in the characters, the fictionalized characters of Lily and Ahmed in the film. They're both sort of vying for the spotlight of the film and vying to be the kind of the main character, if you will.
And thinking about how to have kind of this equal authorship, we did want to deconstruct the film form in this one, just to have the still images, the subtitles, the narration, all of that really came into play because we were sort of opening our mind into how we could loosen up making a movie and restructure it in a way that would best suit our needs for trying to represent ourselves.
They're either too this or not enough that. They've mostly been small roles in cheap horror movies and comedies. None of the serious films will take him. He thinks his name is partly to blame. He blames his face as well. His nose is not quite right, he says. His face doesn't lend itself to dramatic roles. You can't quite decide whether his features are soft or defined. The headshots I've taken don't do him any favors either, he says.
Thinking about the session on the line between fact and fiction, are there parts of the inspiration that felt, really close and maybe personal, and other parts that felt like this is totally fictitious and we're just gonna really dive into this and enjoy it?
So there were a lot of decisions about how we draw that line, and how much of ourselves we share. There's also this idea that a fictionalized version of yourself can almost be a little bit more honest than the truth, because the truth is so particular and so specific to you that it's hard to communicate that to other people when you actually stick to the facts. So I think sort of making this fake biography for the two of us, and a fake shared biography of the two of us, allowed us to actually share the emotional and sort of spiritual truth, as opposed to the strict biographical truth.
He's never actually been to Egypt, even though his grandfather, whom he'd never met, was Egyptian. For his 25th birthday, I will buy him a collection of medieval Arab stories titled Tales of the Marvelous and News of the Strange. He will not read it.
And I feel like it's doing a beautiful job at exactly reproducing those complexities in partnership, in life, in relationships and everything. And that's why I felt it was so powerful, right? And we felt it was so powerful and such a feminist intervention, because you don't give us the key. We have to find out, as viewers and listeners, we have to find our own answers.